The present reading session is from Silence Speaks. Topic where we are starting from is spiritual suicide. People have no faith in God, and I have no faith in my health. Having no faith in one's health is the sign of weakness, and having no faith in God is the sign of spiritual suicide. People say that the crops nowadays are not good, which means that God has now grown old, and so he does not remember certain things. But the people do not understand what confusion they have created in his work. With the power given by him, actions are proportionately continued. Now our actions went against the nature and created a mess in the environment, whereby our own throats are being cut. The things now require to be cleaned, which is being done to a certain extent and will be continued. It has all to be done by you people only, and unknowingly every sign does something. I have courage and my master's grace I have courage, and by master's grace there is nothing lacking. It will not require another second to do it. I have written all these things so that you people may also develop courage in yourselves. But I do not do this because those who have created all this mess by misuse of their powers may reap the fruit of their actions. Nature also wants the same thing. Destruction is bound to come, and it started also, and these are the causes. Continue. Purification method. It is seen that people do not get benefit from the evening practice of cleaning. The reason is that they do it in a faulty way. Inform all the persons conducting satsang under your center and explain orally to whomsoever you meet. In fact, people first began to meditate on grossness. And then think that it is going from backside in the form of smoke. Really speaking, they ought to throw it out by thought suggestion in the form of smoke. Humility. How beautifully a poet has put it. When his mercy reached the sinners, those who were not sinners were affronted. गुनाहगारों को पूछो जो उसकी रहमत ने बहुत काफिफ हुए जो गुनाहगार ना थे. To think oneself a sinner is a mark of humility, but this idea is Islamic. Probably this has not been said in our religion. There is indeed a matter of courtesy in this. When we think ourselves to be sinners, our heart begins to drag his mercy, and we will be amply benefited in this condition when we totally depend upon his mercy. It is a part of surrender. When we proceed towards a great thing, we begin to feel our littleness, so much so that we will be looking towards his mercy and we will be a non-entity. It means that we create a vacuum for his mercy. This is about reality, which the seeker alone can know. Shall I continue?
Continue, yes.
Devotion. Love is praised everywhere. There is a story in the Mahabharata. When Lord Krishna went to Vidura's house, Vidura's wife, who was bathing naked, rapturously opened the door and came out on hearing Krishna's voice. Krishna threw his upper garment and covered her. She began to feed him with plantains plantains in such a way that she gave him the skin peel, threw it and threw away the fruit. When Vidura came and reminded her as to what she was doing, she came to her senses and began to feed him the fruit. Lord Krishna then said that the taste which he found in the peel was not there in the fruit. So when love and bhakti take hold to such an extent, the condition which Vidra's wife had is sometimes experienced by the less advanced. Sri X has written to me that I must go to Chikmagalur, but my health is not capable of withstanding the strain of purposeless journey. He thinks that he would gain merit by my growing there, but it would in fact be gained by rakat, the meaning of which you know. In short, merit is earned by prayer and devotion. Gained by rakat. Rakat means?
అంటే ఉర్దూ వర్డ్ అది గూగుల్ ట్రాన్స్లేట్ అంటే మెరిట్ అనుకుంటా. అంటే గ్రేస్ గెయిన్ బై అంటే బై యువర్ డిజర్వింగ్నెస్ అండ్ బై యువర్ ప్రాక్టీస్ అండ్ ఇది అనుకుంటా. ఒక్క నిమిషం గూగుల్ ట్రాన్స్లేట్ చేస్తే తెలుస్తుంది.
It says it's a prayer.
Okay.
It's an Arabic word. Single iteration, prescribed movements and supplications performed by Muslims as part of the prescribed obligatory prayers.
అంటే ప్రేయర్ వల్ల వస్తుంది అంటున్నాడు ఆయన.
Okay. Shall I continue? Guidance to a sadhaka. I have to take a lot of work from you and also do a lot of work on you. Thus, taking and giving both are involved. In English, there is a saying, exchange is no robbery. In your spare time, you must be remembering God. You may not as you go on that same changes are taking place. At present, I have just made a beginning of this. In future, I hope it may come to you. It may come to your knowledge. For this, you have to be prepared for work in the space. You have to be prepared for the work in the space. It happens that sometimes during meditation, the Abhyasi feels absorbed, while sometimes he does not. The reason is that the sanskaras which are firmly rooted in their field come towards the heart and go out. This is because meditation creates a vacuum in the heart. As long as all sanskaras are not thrown out, there cannot be liberation. As a matter of fact, I go on cleaning them in the routine course also. I have written an article on this subject somewhere in the Shahajahanpur Patrika. Whatever condition develops during meditation, whether it is liked by the Abhyasi or disliked, is beneficial in every way. Spirituality is a very easy thing and its achievement does not take much time. One should only increase faith and devotion. And devotion is generated by remembering again and again. Continue. Constant remembrance. God willing, your doubts shall certainly vanish. But it is of course certain that none has up till now been able to answer every why, nor is there any hope of it in the future. The light which you feel is the reflection of your own good thoughts and of your deep feelings of love. Give up the idea that you have not so far progressed in meditation. Go on with it. maintaining constant remembrance as best as possible. It shall not be difficult for you since you are a man of devotion. You asked me to tell you about the natural state of mind, matter, and spirit. What can I say when I do not feel even myself, nor am I a scientist to be able to build up on the basis of my knowledge? Herein the devotee, the prophet, and the Lord do not come into cognition, and the Trinity vanishes altogether. What may I write then? I shall definitely see you in person soon. But so long as I am not there, you can keep me there as a guest in your heart. When I am actually there in person, I shall myself be the guest and the host as well. You can bring others on the path by your prayer, devotion, and pious thoughts. The way to practice constant remembrance which you are following is quite all right. The method which I had myself applied for the purpose and would probably be considered a bit dull, but it was most pleasant to me and I derived the greatest benefit from it. I always try to see the whole physical form of the master in my vision, and during meditation, I always meditated upon his form, placing it within my heart. When this practice gets matured, the next phase comes in automatically. That means that a stage of dissolution or emergence has been crossed. You complain against me for having bound you with etiquette. I think it is your own merit by the effect of which you have stopped fluttering about and have put yourself within the bondage of love. But the objective shall be arrived at when this bondage too assumes its absolute state, and even love seems to be lost. God loves him who has seen him but remains at a distance from him. That means one must keep his remembrance alive in his heart, remaining ever within the sphere of devotion, in full cognizance of his own status of humanity. If we try to retain the effect gained by meditation for the most part of the day and abide in the same state for as long as we can, we are in a way in constant remembrance of God, and our progress is easy and rapid. We must also cultivate the habits which might be conducive to our efforts, and we must also cultivate habits which might be conducive to our efforts for shattering the network. For instance, the ear should attend to only noble talks, the eyes should see only that which is pious and good, and the heart should be inclined only towards that which is virtuous. Purity of body and mind he's clearly insisting upon. Remembrance. I have stated elsewhere that realization is very easy if one only diverts one's attention towards it. That means that he must have a deep impression of it upon his heart. The deeper the impression, the quicker and easier shall be the success. Not much remains to be done when one has done so much. Taking in of this impression means imbibing of very thing that one aspires for. In that case, the divine thought will continuously remain alive in his heart, and his attention will remain drawn towards it all the while. this is what constant remembrance exactly means. Now, if this thought is associated with the idea of fellow being who is merged in the absolute, judge for yourself whether or not it shall indirectly be related within the absolute, with the absolute. As a matter of fact, the idea of personality in such cases is but nominal. The more you go deep into the thought, the more of the coverings or subtler nature shall be torn off one by one, till finally the original, alone remains to view. Now, since the origin is in his view, he shall be blessed with the direct divine grace. Now when that ultimate state of being is in view, it is but natural that by constantly looking at it, one may finally close the vision altogether by the effect of the magnetic force radiating from it, and statelessness, the basic property of the real, may begin to settle down. Mutual love between the two can exist only when the differentiation for the reason begins to give away, and a feeling of sameness begins to develop in its place. But you go on still, and the sameness continues to develop. You get charged with the effect. The idea of his greatness is there in the background, and nothing but remembrance alone remains now. A sense of sameness having been developed by the effect of remembrance, it begins to appear that he himself is absorbed in your remembrance. This feeling, having become permanent, introduces the condition which Kabir Das has described as "Mera Ram mujhe baje, tab payum bisram." My mind can be at rest only when the Lord gets busy with the remembrance of me. This is a transcendent state of devotion. At this stage, the lover himself becomes the beloved, and this must necessarily be when the guru and the disciple are correlated in the real sense. As a matter of fact, remembrance is almost akin to the vibration which has developed at the time of creation for the purpose of bringing existence into being. To get oneself merged in that primordial state of remembrance, the vibration, is not everybody's job. Only a rare personality may be capable of this, but that does not mean that others should not try for it. One might be surprised to find that I interpret primordial vibrations as remembrance. It is because, as a rule, a very subtle idea comes first into the mind, which later on develops into thought. Thus, the latent divine will to reflect creation automatically developed into vibrations in the form of thought. Thought and remembrance are closely similar in nature. Remembrance includes within it a kind of mild sensation which in thought exists in a latent state only. The sensation increases the force and stirs up vibrations throughout the body. Going beyond this sheath of sensation, you arrive at the point of origin of remembrance, which may be taken as the base. Beyond that level, it is inexplicable. One may perhaps feel something of it by way of extreme subtleness, I wish my associates to be gifted with capacity to acquire that state of settledness. The same state of remembrance and vibrations exists at each succeeding stage, but with difference in the degree of denseness, which is very difficult to define. The condition of Aham Brahmasmi, so loudly spoken of, has ever been a subject of constant reference and argumentative discussion among diversely colored bhaktas. The condition, as it comes to practical view, has three phases which are experienced in sequence. The first of these is the feeling, I am Brahma, I am Brahma. The second, all is Brahma. And the third, all is from Brahma. The first is related with the individuality, while the third is related with universality. The second one is only an intermediary stage, which finally leads one to universality. Most of the renowned saints of the world would not have gone beyond the very first, whereas of Indian sages, a great number of amongst them had gone far beyond. All these conditions are present at every point, varying only in the degree of subtleness. Every Abhyasi undergoes all these states during the course of his march, though he may not be consciously aware of them.
Any questions, comments so far? So we'll go ahead.
Yeah. God is quite plain and simple, devoid of everything, not to speak of any solidity. So it is absolutely necessary for us to free ourselves from grossness and solidity in order to achieve Him. The solidity comes in by effect of our own thoughts, actions, and surroundings. Our thoughts must therefore be regulated, and the individual mind must be thoroughly disciplined so as to clear off the weight settled in. We should become as light as possible so that a single breath of Master may put us to the highest possible flight. In our samstha, the reality is infused into the abhyas at the first stroke. It serves as a seed for further growth, which under the watchful eye of the Master goes on developing unaffected by the scorching heat of adverse circumstances. But it remains for you to keep on watering it by your constant remembrance, which is the only instrument to ensure speedy progress in spirituality. We must go on with speedy steps, not resting even for a moment till we have attained the goal. When we have got the right path, we must stick to it. We must stick to it firmly and not to be away from it at any cost. All sorts of grosser means and mechanical practices should be given up. When we find ourselves growing lighter and lighter day by day, we must conclude that we are proceeding right towards that which is the lightest and the subtlest. We must never be disappointed of the divine grace. God is the supreme master, and his will must be carried out in every respect. We should think ourselves to be bankrupt and remain ever busy with worship and devotion, not minding the interruptions and disturbances that happen to come in our way. We should never be disheartened to think that our puja cannot be carried on regularly on account of inner disturbances, which I put down as barking of dogs. The dogs will never stop barking even though you give them a good ration. Let the dogs bark, but the elephant goes on, paying no heed to them. If possible, you may better train the dogs so that they may not bark to disturb you in your puja. But for that, you have to adopt proper means to mend their irregular habits. If you apply physical force to stop their barking, there is a danger of their becoming violent and offensive. Therefore, it is better to show them that their barking shall not be a disturbance to you. When it comes up to this, their barking will eventually subside. Further, if we had taken care of it earlier, their barking might never have come to effect at all. In short, we have only to train them so that they might by themselves come up to proper regulation and discipline. The only way for that would be to raise ourselves up to the level where they may also begin to take the effect of our inner state of mind. That means spiritual elevation up to the level at which even animals may begin to take in the effect. This is the crucial purpose served in the long run by practice and meditation. Barking of dogs refers to the unregulated activities of the mind and indriyas, which can easily be set right by meditation and remembrance.
We'll stop here, Dharmesh. This is a very important article, has to be read again and again.
Yeah. Any questions?
Sir, I have a question. Can I?
Sir, you can ask.
Sir, both soul and consciousness can they be said either soul or consciousness meant is both are same when we are referring. When I say soul, can I say consciousness also?
It's a philosophical you see, there is what is called the better idea is drashta. Actually, drashta is the seer.
Right, sir.
Awareness can be treated as you can consider it as soul. Actually, awareness itself.
Awareness is soul. Okay.
So awareness which we have is common to all of us. In
Right,
the
sir.
awareness, you have all the thoughts and feelings. Your mind and body are objects for that awareness.
Right.
And that awareness, as per Sankhya and Yoga, they talk that individual Purushas are there. That means each person's God is individual. Purusha concept is there. But Vedanta and rest of the Babuji and Lord Krishna, they don't agree. They say there's only one God.
Right,
so that awareness is itself God, which is omniscient and omnipresent everywhere. So
Right,
if you take better word is awareness rather than you can interchangeably use that word consciousness. Consciousness, if it becomes totally pure, if it is actually what happens, they say when we say chitta vritti nirodha, when the mind becomes extremely tranquil, when there are no thoughts and feelings,
Right,
in that mind there is the Viveka is fully manifested.
Right, sir.
That mind clearly knows that, if you read the second commandment, Babuji says, prayer is a sign of devotion. And when you are praying, a relationship is formed with the Divine Master, he says. And when you feel that, when the idea of Divine Master is established in your heart, then you know that you are a slave. You are a slave, and he is the master. And the job of a slave is to only service, he says. So when the mind is perfectly, when you do your meditation correctly, a stage comes when it becomes very steady. That means it becomes one-pointed, or ekagrata vritti, which moves into nirodha. Nirodha is the mind becomes standstill. Standstill means it's not the flow is so smooth and steady towards only one object. And at that time, what happens? That mind comes to know that, comes to become aware of the God or the awareness of the drashta inside.
Right.
And then what happens? The mind disappears from the scene. They give the example of a dancer, actually, like a dancer comes on the stage and the audience see the dance. After the dance is over, the dancer withdraws from the scene. So the mind actually serves the purpose of giving you experiences in this world. And after giving experience, it gives you liberation itself. And after giving liberation, it gets out of the scene. And then the famous sutra of Patanjali comes into the picture, which is the third sutra, which says that Tada Drashta Swarupa Avasthanam. The seer lives in his own consciousness. That means he lives in himself. That is a state of balance, which Babuji also describes in the fifth commandment. He says, it is as it is.
Right.
So there the mind has withdrawn from the scene. Mind doesn't exist. You're moved into soul, actually. The mind is an instrument only.
Right.
So when the soul is awakened, it lives in itself, and it is very difficult to describe there. He just says it is as it is. He says you can't even say it is power. And then materiality comes into question. All thoughts, feelings, everything end there. So that is how. So very difficult to say, to coin the term as consciousness for that state of balance, because that creates ideas in our mind, which is again materialism. Any idea in your mind is matter only.
Right.
So if you can think in terms of awareness, it will help you.
Right, sir. It meant soul.
Yeah, you can talk it as in our Vedantic concept and Vedanta and all that. The soul itself is Brahman, no? The Atma becomes Brahman when it is liberated from the mind and body. It becomes a Brahman itself. That is self-realization. That is called self-realization. That means the self or the awareness realizes its true nature. As long as it is entangled in the body and mind, it is a jiva, individual soul, actually, which is a restricted soul. And when it transcends this time, space, and causation, it becomes Brahman, actually.
Soul with some attributes you call individual.
Soul is, it's very difficult to describe, no? Because it is described as neti neti, not this, not this, not this. All descriptions of God are descriptions of the soul, that's all.
So
whatever whoever has described in our Upanishadic literature about God, all the description is valid for the soul, actually.
So consciousness, can we say it is more general term and soul is specific to?
No. Consciousness, if it is very refined, if you
right,
take the consciousness to the origin just after it has taken birth from whatever source it is, because your mind and logic cannot reach there. But you can, if you imagine the origin of consciousness, and you can imagine the birth of consciousness. At the very beginning of the birth of consciousness, you can think that it is of the subtlest nature.
Right.
then you can say that that is godly conscious, divine consciousness. Or the best way to understand is air is there surrounding the
Right.
earth. The air is very dense within the first few feet and all that. As you go up into the sky, the atmosphere after about 100 kilometers, there'll be no air at all. It becomes
Right.
less dense.
Right.
So your consciousness can be dense and can be very light. The lightest thing can be taken as God, and that's why we use the word Anant Kior. There is it's infinity. The amount of lightness which is possible for the consciousness is infinite, actually.
Right.
Somewhere in the point, from which point you will call it as soul, from which point you call it as God, it's all mind is not designed to understand God. So you can just have this idea that when your ego or the feeling of self-identity becomes negated, and that negation is infinite, it is towards Anant Kior, then probably you're thinking in the correct lines. But then yoga does not ask you to think, or now we are reading Babuji's works about, it does not help you at all.
This doesn't help.
You have to have pratyaksha experience, direct experience you should have. Yoga gives prominence to pramana, that is a direct experience. And that happens when you meditate, you get absorbed in God, you'll start getting direct experience. So all thinking, reading, talking, they are indirect experiences. It's not your experience, so it doesn't solve your life problem. Life problem is not solved by reading or thinking and claiming that you are a friend of Babuji, or he talked to you, or he's you're related to him through caste or blood relation. It doesn't help at all.
Right.
That's what he said. No, the other person, he asked me to go to Chikmagalur. He thought if I go there, he will get a merit and all that. Merit will not come by that way. It comes through rakat, he says. That means all these things don't help at all. Only thing which helps is you meditate. Meditate with a feeling of love and devotion towards God, because yoga is a very serious business. Right. And seriousness is that unless you have a feeling of reverence towards the object of meditation, right. We are just ritually wasting our time.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Ramesh?
Yeah. We'll meet next week.
Okay. We'll meet next week.